James Harper, a 32-year-old accountant from Seattle, thrived on precision. Numbers never lied, and neither, he thought, did his wife, Sophie Bennett. For 7 years, they'd built a life in their Seattle home, a place filled with memories of late-night talks and shared dreams. Sophie, a driven corporate lawyer, often worked late, sparking minor tiffs, but James trusted their bond. That trust crumbled one rainy Saturday morning. Sophie was due to leave for a New York work conference in a week. James, planning to surprise her with flowers during her trip, needed her hotel's name. She'd mentioned it once, but he'd been distracted, and he didn't want another lecture about not listening. Sophie was out running, her phone left on the kitchen counter. James, who rarely touched her things, hesitated. She trusts me, he thought, entering their wedding date as the passcode. The screen flickered on, showing an email app she hadn't logged out of. He wasn't snooping, just searching for a hotel. But a subject line stopped him cold. Counting down to New York. Love. It wasn't from a client. It was from Ryan Coleman, a colleague at Sophie's firm. James's chest tightened as he opened the email. Dinner at that rooftop bar, a walk down Fifth Avenue, then back to our suite, Ryan wrote. Sophie's reply was a gut punch. You make me feel alive. James is too safe. The emails, spanning weeks, outlined a romantic getaway masked as a work trip. They'd used their work emails, a bold mistake for two lawyers. James's hands trembled, but his mind raced. Years of spotting financial fraud had sharpened his nose for deceit. Sophie's offhand mention of a dull conference now clicked, her averted gaze, her too casual tone. He'd sensed a lie but never imagined this. The betrayal burned, a raw ache in his core. Yet rage gave way to focus. Confronting her would only tip her off. Instead, he forwarded the emails to himself, erasing his tracks. Sophie returned, her dark ponytail swaying, unaware of the storm brewing. Morning, Han, she said, grabbing water. James forced a smile, his thoughts churning. Morning. Big day? He asked, probing. Just prepping for New York, she said, eyes elsewhere. Her lie was seamless. James's stomach twisted, but he stayed calm. He needed a strategy, and he needed it now. At a Capitol Hill coffee shop that afternoon, James mapped his next moves over a black coffee. First, proof. He called Rachel Moore, a private investigator he'd met on a pro bono case. I need surveillance, he said. Sophie's cheating. I want evidence. Rachel's voice was steady. Photos, video, all legal. I'm on it. James nodded. Everything. Next, he rang Megan Walsh, a college friend and notary. I need you to witness some documents, he said. Megan, sensing his urgency, agreed. Name the time, James. Hanging up, his plan crystallized. Sophie thought her legal smarts made her untouchable. But James wasn't the safe husband she mocked. He'd caught liars in ledgers. Catching her would be no different. Back home, Sophie packed for her trip, humming. James watched, torn between pain and resolve. Excited for New York? He asked lightly. She paused, then smiled. Just work, you know? Meetings. Her lie was a thread he'd pull apart. By the time she boarded her flight, James would be ready to unravel her world. Legally, brilliantly, and without her ever suspecting a thing. James Harper sat in the dim glow of his laptop screen at the Capitol Hill coffee shop, the bitter taste of betrayal still sharp. Sophie's emails with Ryan Coleman burned in his mind. Her words, James is too safe, cut deeper than he'd admit. But James wasn't the predictable accountant she thought. Years of unraveling financial scams had taught him patience, precision, and how to outsmart a liar. Sophie's arrogance, using work emails for her affair, was her first mistake. James would make sure it wasn't her last. He opened his notebook, pen moving with purpose. Step 1, airtight evidence. Rachel Moore, the private investigator, was already on the case. Her text came through as he sipped his coffee. Got eyes on Sophie and Ryan. Dinner tonight, downtown. Photos incoming. James nodded to himself. Rachel was discreet, her work always clean. Perfect for what he needed. He didn't want just photos. He wanted proof that would hold up in court. Sophie and Ryan, Both lawyers would fight dirty if cornered. He had to be smarter. Step 2. Legal leverage. James needed to protect his assets before Sophie suspected anything. Their home, a cozy Seattle property Sophie adored, was their biggest joint asset. Selling it would hit her hard. Not just financially, but emotionally. She'd chosen it for its charm, its view of the Puget Sound. James had loved it too once. Now it was a chess piece. He dialed Sam Grayson, a real estate developer he'd met through a client. "Sam, you still buying properties to flip?" James asked. Sam's voice crackled with enthusiasm. "Always, James. Got a place in mind." James outlined the deal, a quick sale, no realtor, cash offer above market value. Sam agreed to meet Sunday, promising a contract that would clear their mortgage and leave James with a hefty profit. "Sophie's okay with this?" Sam asked. James paused, then said, "She's tied up with work. I'll handle her side." The lie felt foreign but necessary. Step 3. Paperwork. James needed Sophie to sign documents that would secure his plan, divorce filings, a property settlement, and a power of attorney. But she couldn't know their true purpose. That's where Megan Walsh, his notary friend, came in. James texted her, "Need you Tuesday morning at the house. Bring your stamp." Megan replied instantly, "I'm there." "You okay?" James didn't answer. He wasn't okay, but he wasn't about to let emotions derail him. As he planned, a new worry crept in. Sophie was sharp, too sharp. What if she sensed something? Last night, she'd asked about his day with a probing look, her blue eyes searching his face. James had brushed it off, but her question lingered. Did she suspect he knew? He pushed the thought aside. Doubt was a luxury he couldn't afford. Still, he added a contingency to his list, keep Sophie distracted. He'd play the dutiful husband, lulling her into complacency until the moment struck. Sunday morning, James met Sam at a diner near their home. Sam slid a contract across the table. "This'll clear your mortgage plus $100,000 profit," he said. James scanned the terms, clean, fast, no contingencies. "I'll need Sophie's signature," Sam noted. James nodded. "I've got her power of attorney. She's swamped with work." Sam didn't blink. "Works for me. Sign by Wednesday and we close when she's in New York." James shook his hand, a grim satisfaction settling in. Sophie would return to an empty lot, her dream home gone. Back at the coffee shop, Rachel sent an update, photos of Sophie and Ryan at a candlelit restaurant, their hands intertwined. The images stung, but James focused on their value, clear, time-stamped proof of their affair. Rachel's message added, "They're at Ryan's place now. Want me to keep watch?" James typed back, "Yes. Get video if you can." Discreet. He needed every angle covered. Monday night, James returned home, his face a mask of normalcy. Sophie was in the living room, sipping wine, her laptop open. "Long day?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. James's pulse quickened. "Was she fishing?" "Just the usual," he said, forcing a smile. "You ready for New York?" Sophie's face softened. "Yeah, it'll be intense. Meetings all day." Her lie was flawless, but James saw through it. He excused himself to his home office, where he reviewed Rachel's latest report. Ryan had stayed at their house last night. The betrayal was bold, reckless. James's resolve hardened. Tuesday morning was the turning point. James woke early, his plan in motion. Sophie would leave for New York in a week, but today he'd set the trap. He called Megan, confirming her arrival at 7:30 a.m. Then he checked his email. Rachel had sent a video link. It showed Sophie and Ryan entering their home, laughing, oblivious to the camera Rachel had hidden in a tree. The footage was damning, their faces unmistakable. James saved it to a secure drive, his hands steady despite the ache in his chest. As dawn broke, James prepared the documents, a divorce filing citing adultery, a property settlement giving him full proceeds from the house sale, and a power of attorney for Sophie's assets. He'd present them as routine financial updates, nothing to alarm her. But a new twist hit him. What if Sophie refused to sign? She was a lawyer, she might read the fine print. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, "Ryan's still at your house. Left his car in the garage." James's jaw tightened. Ryan was upstairs, right now, in their bed. It was a risk, but also an opportunity. Sophie would be distracted, desperate to keep Ryan hidden. James could use that. He walked into the kitchen, where Sophie was making coffee, her hair tousled from sleep. "Morning," he said brightly. "Got a surprise for you." Sophie turned, her smile faltering. "What kind?" she asked, cautious. James kept his tone light. "Just some paperwork to tidy up before your trip. Megan's coming by to notarize." Sophie's eyes flickered, but she nodded. "Sure, whatever you need." Her voice was too calm, and James knew she was nervous. Ryan's presence upstairs was his leverage. Today he'd outsmart her, and she'd never see it coming. Tuesday morning dawned gray over Seattle, the air heavy with the promise of rain. James Harper stood in his kitchen, heart pounding but face calm. Today was the day he'd outmaneuver Sophie Bennett, his wife of 7 years, whose betrayal had turned his world to ash. Her lover, Ryan Coleman, was upstairs in their bed, a fact confirmed by Rachel Moore's surveillance. Sophie didn't know James knew, and that was his edge. In an hour, Megan Walsh, his notary friend, would arrive to witness Sophie sign documents that would unravel her life. Divorce papers, a property settlement, and a power of attorney. Sophie would think they were routine. James would ensure she never read the fine print. He glanced at the clock. 7:15 a.m. Sophie shuffled into the kitchen. Her dark hair messy, eyes bleary but sharp. She froze when she saw James, his briefcase open on the counter, papers neatly stacked. "You're up early," she said, forcing a smile. Her voice betrayed a flicker of nerves. James caught it. Ryan's presence upstairs had her on edge. "Big day," he replied, keeping his tone light. "Megan's coming by to notarize some papers. Just financial stuff before your trip." Sophie's shoulders tensed, but she nodded. "Okay, sure. Now." Her eyes darted toward the stairs. James seized the moment. "Yeah, she'll be here soon. Thought we'd get it done quick, so you can focus on New York." He slid a coffee mug toward her, a calculated gesture of normalcy. Sophie took it, her fingers trembling slightly. "What kind of papers?" she asked, sipping to mask her unease. James shrugged, casual. "Just updates, mortgage refinance, some account transfers. Routine stuff. You know how I am about loose ends." He smiled, the lie smooth. Sophie relaxed a fraction, but her gaze flicked upstairs again. Ryan was a ticking bomb, and she knew it. At 7:30, Megan knocked. James opened the door, greeting her with a nod. Megan, sensing the tension, kept her expression neutral. "Morning, Sophie," she said, setting her notary stamp on the dining table. Sophie, now in a robe, managed a tight smile. "Hi, Megan. Let's make this quick." James laid out the documents, each flagged with a sticky note for her signature. "Just sign where marked," he said. "I've checked everything." He handed her a pen, his pulse racing. This was the gamble. If Sophie read the papers, his plan could collapse. Sophie hesitated, glancing at the stack. "What's all this?" she asked, her lawyer instincts kicking in. James's heart skipped, but he was ready. "Refinance terms, a power of attorney for while you're gone, and some account updates. Nothing major." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Unless you want to read every line. But I know you're swamped." Sophie's eyes narrowed, but a faint creak from upstairs, a floorboard under Ryan's weight, made her flinch. Her face paled. She was trapped, desperate to keep James from going upstairs. Megan, picking up on the cue, chimed in. "I just need your ID and signatures, Sophie. Won't take long." Sophie grabbed her purse, fumbling for her driver's license. James watched, his calm exterior hiding a surge of adrenaline. Sophie's panic was his weapon. She sat, pen hovering over the first document. "You sure this is routine?" she asked, her voice tight. James met her gaze, unflinching. "You trust me, don't you?" The words were a dagger, laced with irony only he understood. Sophie's lips parted, but another creak upstairs sealed her fate. She signed, her hand shaking, eyes darting between the papers and the staircase. One by one, she signed, divorce papers citing adultery, a settlement giving James the house sale proceeds, a power of attorney granting him control over her assets. Megan notarized each, her stamp a quiet drumbeat of James's victory. Sophie didn't read a word. Her focus split between the documents and the threat of Ryan's discovery. James kept the pressure on, chatting lightly about her trip. "New York's gonna be hectic, huh? All those meetings?" Sophie nodded absently, signing the final page. "Yeah, hectic," she mumbled. Megan packed up, glancing at James. "All set," she said, her voice steady. "I'll file these today." Sophie handed over her ID for Megan to photograph, barely noticing. James walked Megan to the door, their eyes meeting briefly. A shared understanding. "Thanks, Meg," he said. She nodded, slipping out. Sophie stood, clutching her coffee mug, visibly relieved. "That's done," she said, forcing cheer. "I need a shower." James smiled. "Go for it. I've got a call downstairs." He headed to his basement office, leaving her to deal with Ryan. As he closed the office door, James exhaled, his hands shaking. He'd done it. Sophie had signed her own downfall, blind to the trap. But a new twist hit him. His phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Ryan's texting Sophie. He's spooked, thinks you know. Watch her." James's stomach dropped. If Ryan warned Sophie now, she might check the documents before Megan filed them. He opened his laptop, accessing Rachel's live feed from a camera outside. Ryan's car was still in the garage. James needed to act fast. He texted Megan, "File everything ASAP. Don't wait." Then he called Sam Grayson, the real estate developer. "Sam, we're good to go. Contracts signed. Can you start the sale process?" Sam's voice was eager. "Hell yeah. I'll have the crew ready when she's in New York." James hung up, his mind racing. Sophie was upstairs, likely whispering with Ryan. If she suspected anything, she could confront him now. He needed to keep her off balance. James climbed the stairs, deliberately loud. "Soph, you still up there?" he called. Silence, then her voice strained. "Yeah, just getting ready." He lingered, hearing hushed voices. Ryan was still there, and Sophie was scrambling. James smiled grimly. Her lies were crumbling, and she didn't even know it. By the time she boarded her flight to New York, the house would be sold, the divorce filed, and her world upended, all because she underestimated the man she called safe. James Harper sat in a Portland cafe 1,000 miles from the life he'd left behind. It was Friday, and Sophie Bennett, his soon-to-be ex-wife, was landing back in Seattle after her New York trip. She'd walk into the ruins of her betrayal, oblivious to the trap James had set. A week ago, she'd signed divorce papers, a property settlement, and a power of attorney, thinking they were routine forms. Now their Seattle home, the one Sophie loved, was sold, its proceeds in James's account. The divorce was filed, and Sophie's world was about to collapse. James sipped his coffee, checking his phone. Rachel Moore, his private investigator, had sent a text. "Sophie's plane landed. She's headed to the house with Ryan." Cameras rolling. James had kept Rachel's hidden camera trained on the property, a final piece of his plan to document Sophie's reaction. He didn't need to see her fall apart to feel justice, but he wanted proof she'd face the consequences. His phone buzzed again. Sam Grayson, the real estate developer. "Sales closed. Crew's clearing the lot today. You're free and clear." James exhaled, a weight lifting. The house, once a symbol of their shared dreams, was gone. A week earlier, while Sophie was in New York, James had executed the final steps. Using the power of attorney she'd signed, he'd finalized the sale with Sam. The deal was swift, $100,000 above the mortgage, deposited into James's personal account. He'd closed their joint accounts, ensuring Sophie couldn't touch the funds. Her clothes and jewelry, left behind, were donated to a local charity, a quiet jab at her vanity. The divorce papers, filed by his lawyer friend Henry, cited adultery with evidence from Rachel's photos and videos. Sophie's signature on an affidavit admitting her affair sealed her fate. She'd have no legal ground to fight. But a twist had emerged. Rachel's last update hinted that Sophie was unraveling in New York. "She's been erratic at the conference," Rachel texted. "Missed meetings, botched a presentation. Ryan's not much better." James hadn't expected their affair to implode so fast. Their firm, known for its cutthroat standards, wouldn't tolerate unprofessionalism. Sophie's dream job was slipping, and James hadn't lifted a finger to cause it. Her own recklessness was enough. Back in Seattle, Sophie stepped out of a cab, Ryan at her side. The camera feed, streamed to James's laptop, captured it all. Their cozy craftsman home was gone, replaced by a barren lot. Sophie froze, her face draining of color. What happened?" she stammered, dropping her suitcase. Ryan grabbed her arm, his voice sharp. "This is impossible. Where's the house?" Sophie stumbled forward, scanning the empty dirt. A construction crew was hauling debris, the last traces of their life together. She sank to her knees, a sob escaping. Ryan paced, muttering about lawsuits, but his bravado faded as a worker handed them a notice, property sold by owner's consent. James watched, his heart a mix of vindication and ache. He'd loved Sophie once, believed in their future. Her betrayal had burned that away, but seeing her broken stirred no joy, only closure. He closed the laptop, the feed no longer needed. His phone rang. Henry. Divorce is on track, Henry said. Sophie's firm got wind of her affair. They're demoting her and Ryan. The client they fumbled in New York is furious. They're out of favor. James nodded. Thanks, Henry. Keep me posted. Sophie's fall wasn't just personal. Her firm, embarrassed by her and Ryan's conduct, had sidelined them. The conference flop, missed deadlines, sloppy work had cost them a major client. James hadn't planned that part, but it fit. Sophie's arrogance, using work emails for her affair, had left a trail anyone could follow. Her career, her home, her stability gone, not by James's cruelty, but by her own choices. A new message from Rachel. Sophie's at her parents' now. Tried calling you. She's frantic. James ignored it. Sophie had texted him daily in New York, her messages casual at first, then desperate when he didn't reply. He blocked her number after the sale closed. She'd find the divorce papers soon, served to her parents' address. The affidavit she'd signed admitting her affair would silence any fight. She'd walked into his trap, blinded by her own deceit. James leaned back, gazing out the cafe window. Portland felt like a fresh start. He'd rented a small apartment, taken up hiking again, a passion Sophie never shared. He wasn't celebrating, but he was free. Sophie and Ryan would rebuild or not. That wasn't his burden. His plan had worked, not out of spite, but to protect his future. Justice, not revenge, had guided him. And for the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of peace. James Harper stood on a Portland trail, the crisp air of Mount Tabor filling his lungs. 2 weeks had passed since Sophie Bennett, his now ex-wife, returned to Seattle and found their home reduced to an empty lot. The divorce was finalized, the proceeds from the house sale secure in James's account, and Sophie's life was unraveling not by his cruelty, but by her own choices. James had reclaimed his future, but the victory felt hollow without closure. Today, he'd tie up the last loose end. His phone buzzed, a voicemail from Sophie's mother. James, please call. Sophie's a mess. She needs to talk. He ignored it as he had her frantic texts and calls. Sophie had tried reaching him since discovering the divorce papers served to her parents' home. Her messages, laced with panic and pleas, went unanswered. James wasn't running from her pain, he was done carrying it. Rachel Moore, his private investigator, had sent a final update. Sophie was hiding at her parents', her career in tatters. Ryan Coleman, her lover, had been demoted alongside her, their firm citing unprofessional conduct after their New York conference flop. Their affair, exposed by their own reckless emails, had cost them everything. James reflected on the path that led here. Sophie's betrayal, planning a romantic escape with Ryan while lying to his face, had shattered his trust. But her arrogance, using work emails, had been her downfall. James's plan was simple: protect himself, legally and decisively. With Megan Walsh's notarized documents, he'd secured the house sale, a divorce citing adultery, and control over their assets. Sophie's signature, given in a panic to hide Ryan's presence, ensured she couldn't fight back. The affidavit admitting her affair was the final nail. A new twist had surfaced days ago. Henry, his lawyer friend, called with news. Sophie had tried to contest the divorce, claiming she hadn't understood the documents. But her lawyer backed off when Henry showed the affidavit and Rachel's evidence, photos, videos, timestamps. Sophie's firm had also received an anonymous tip about her work emails, prompting an internal review. The client they'd lost in New York sued, blaming their negligence. Sophie and Ryan were now jobless, their reputations ruined. James hadn't sent the tip, but he suspected Rachel's network. She'd hinted at friends who don't like cheaters. James didn't ask questions. He hiked higher, the city skyline fading behind trees. Portland was his fresh start. He'd leased a modest apartment, joined a hiking group, and even volunteered at a local charity, donating Sophie's belongings. The old James, the safe accountant she mocked, was gone. In his place was a man who'd learned to trust his instincts. He wasn't proud of outsmarting Sophie, but he was at peace. Justice, not vengeance, had guided him. His phone buzzed again. Henry. It's done, he said. Court approved the divorce. Sophie didn't show. She's got nothing to stand on. James thanked him, then checked a final email from Sam Grayson, the real estate developer. The lot was cleared, but a permitting snag delayed new construction, a minor detail James had arranged through a friend in city planning. Sophie would see that empty lot for months, a reminder of her choices. As he reached the trail's peak, James paused at a lookout. His mind drifted to a memory, proposing to Sophie in a Seattle park, her eyes bright with love. That love was dead, but the pain lingered. He took a deep breath, letting it go. Sophie and Ryan would face their consequences, jobless, disgraced, their affair a public scandal. James didn't need to gloat, their downfall was their own doing. A text from Megan broke his thoughts. Dinner tonight? You owe me for that notary stunt. James smiled. Megan had been his rock, her loyalty a stark contrast to Sophie's deceit. You're on, he replied. And bring that hiking buddy you mentioned. He'd met Megan's friend at a charity event, a kindred spirit who loved trails and second chances. James wasn't ready for love, but he was open to connection. As the sun dipped, James headed down the trail, lighter than he'd felt in months. Sophie's frantic calls would fade, her life no longer his burden. He'd rebuilt his world.